Incredible moment, Millionaire CEO discovers touching life-changing surprise from a little driver. James Dalton, a self-made millionaire and CEO, sped through the bustling streets of his affluent suburban neighborhood, glistening in the late afternoon sun. His sleek black Maserati turned heads, but inside the car, a heavy weight settled within him. All the wealth he had amassed, luxurious cars, exquisite dinners in expensive restaurants, felt hollow. He could feel the emptiness gnawing at him, despite his success. Still, he drove onward, chasing the illusion of happiness that seemed forever just out of reach. Then came a twist that would unravel his world. One ordinary afternoon, a ride-share app pinged, and he found himself in the passenger seat of Ethan's clunky old sedan. Ethan, a 22-year-old driver, flashed a grin that was brighter than the afternoon sun. "How's it going?" he asked, his voice bubbling with infectious cheer. As they drove, Ethan shared snippets of his life, his battles, his victories, supporting his single mother, a decorated veteran struggling with PTSD. It struck a chord deep within James, a reminder of a shared humanity he had lost in his chase for financial success. From that point, these rides turned into more than simple commutes. Every weekend, James hopped into Ethan's car for stargazing drives. They shared dreams, vulnerabilities, the weight of their contrasting worlds. With every mile traveled, James began to appreciate life beyond his lofty corner office, while Ethan recognized a glimpse of the value of perseverance. Yet, the joy was fleeting. On one fateful drive, Ethan's car broke down on the highway, and James's instincts kicked in. "Don't worry, I'll help you," he assured Ethan, offering to cover repairs and provide a loan. But in that moment of generosity, Ethan felt his dignity slip away. It was more than just a vehicle, it was independence, a chance to prove himself. "I appreciate it, but I can handle this," Ethan replied, his voice tight. What was once a blossoming friendship began to crumble. James, oblivious to the hurt he had caused, considered his actions compassionate, while Ethan wrestled with feelings of inadequacy and resentment. Just as James was set on reconciling their fractured bond, an unexpected revelation shook him to the core. Ethan was an unsung hero himself, dedicated to helping fellow veterans through community projects. The depth of Ethan's character forced James to confront everything he had taken for granted. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As James faced this revelation, everything shifted. His empire felt like sand slipping through his fingers, while Ethan's quiet strength became a beacon of hope not just for veterans but for James himself. Still, the tension lingered like a storm cloud. Everything seemed poised on a knife's edge. Would James find humility? Could Ethan forgive the man who had crossed a line? With their personal stakes rising, both men stood at a crossroads, one uncertain step from genuine understanding and connection. The community's future depended on their choices, and time was running out. The ticking clock echoed in both their hearts, leaving them questioning everything they thought they knew. Would they bridge the gap, or would their worlds forever remain divided? James parked his Maserati deeper in the driveway, the adrenaline from the evening excitement still pulsing through him. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that mirrored the uncertainty in his heart. He felt a mix of determination and dread bubbling inside him. Ethan's face flashed before him, his bright smile, the laughter they had shared, the raw honesty of their conversations. Yet, at the same time, the moment of judgment when Ethan had rejected his help loomed heavy in his mind. How could he have misread the situation so completely? James wanted to be the kind of man who uplifted others, yet somehow, he found himself stuck in the mire of his own intentions. He stepped out of the car, hoping the evening air would clear his mind. But as he walked into his sprawling house, it felt more like a gilded cage than a home. On the walls hung accolades, awards from business moguls, framed pictures of charity galas, and a collage of his own accomplishments. Yet, as he looked at them, they felt like hollow trophies, a reminder of the price he had paid for success. His phone buzzed, pulling him back from his thoughts. A message from Ethan. Just a simple text, "Hey, James. Can we talk?" The words felt like a thread, delicate but pulling at the fabric of his reality. Was this a chance for reconciliation? Or a final farewell? With a mixture of hope and anxiety, James typed back, "Of course. When and where? Can we meet at the diner? 7 p.m. He took a deep breath. The diner was a favorite spot of Ethan's, a place where they had laughed over burgers and fries, sharing stories under the neon glow of old signs. It felt fitting, like returning to the scene of their friendship's birth. As he drove to the diner, doubts clouded his mind. What if Ethan had truly decided to cut ties? What if James had ruined the only genuine connection he had found in years? The weight of his own mistakes crashed down, each thought making it harder to breathe. He arrived 10 minutes early, parking outside and scanning the diner's windows. The familiar smell of fried food and coffee wafted through the air, but it did little to calm his nerves. He spotted Ethan sitting at their usual booth, staring at his half-empty cup of coffee, lost in thought. There was something uncharacteristically solemn in his demeanor, a stark contrast to the cheerful driver James had come to know. As James walked in, he felt the gravity of the moment pulling at him. A wave of regret washed over, mixing with hope. He slid into the booth opposite Ethan, searching for the right words to bridge the chasm their misunderstanding had created. "Hey, man. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to overstep. I thought I was helping." Silence hung heavy in the air. Ethan lifted his eyes, a hint of vulnerability cracking his facade. "I know you care, James. But it's hard to take help when you feel like you should be strong enough to do it yourself." James felt the sting of truth in those words. "I get that. I was trying to help, but I didn't think about how it would make you feel. I want to be your friend, not just a benefactor." Ethan seemed to consider this. "It's just I'm used to standing on my own. I want to prove that I can make a difference for myself and others." "It's okay to accept help sometimes," James urged, a surge of empathy pushing him forward. "Even heroes need a hand. You've inspired me to look beyond my own life, and I don't want to lose that connection." As the conversation continued, the tension began to ebb slightly, replaced by an openness both men desperately craved. But even as they talked, James sensed that they had only scratched the surface of their struggles. The diner door swung open, and suddenly, the cheerful jingle of the bell cut through. A well-dressed woman entered, her eyes sweeping the room until they landed on James. Her expression grew incredulous. "James Dalton? Is that really you?" James froze. The familiar voice sent up an alarm in his head. What did she want? Had she come to remind him of his mistakes or challenge him in front of Ethan? His heart raced, and he glanced at Ethan, whose gaze mirrored his own rising tension. A dawning realization washed over him: this unexpected encounter was about to change everything yet again. What would she reveal? And how would it affect their fragile reconciliation? James felt the air in the diner thicken, as if time itself had paused. The woman's penetrating gaze seemed to delve right into him, unraveling layers he had clung to for years. Panic and curiosity sparked in him simultaneously. He had seen her before years ago. "Emily," he managed to force out, his voice barely a whisper. "Wow, I can't believe it's really you," she continued, her smile caught between excitement and disbelief. She approached their booth, exuding confidence in her designer dress, a far cry from the ordinary life they once shared. The sound of heels clacking against the linoleum floors reverberated, drawing more glances from patrons. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere. A thread of possessiveness tugged at James. His friendship with Ethan felt sacred compared to this unexpected intrusion. "How long has it been?" Emily asked, her tone now softer, more introspective. Too long, he replied, his throat dry. His head was reeling, struggling to keep the present moment from collapsing under the weight of old memories. Are you still the CEO of that big company? She asked, genuine interest woven into her words. James nodded, the title seeming more a burden than achievement now. I am. But it's not as glamorous as it looks. Sometimes it's the facade that gets in the way of the real you, she said thoughtfully. Her eyes glimmered with something, a hint of understanding, perhaps. It struck James that she might grasp the sides of him that he had struggled to reconcile, the businessman and the man who craved connection. How are you, Emily? What have you been up to? He asked, a desperate need to redirect the conversation consuming him. The last thing he wanted was for Ethan to feel overshadowed. Oh, you know, life and all its surprises, she replied cryptically, taking a seat across from him, ignoring Ethan for a moment. The energy shifted, it was as if the universe had collided with their past. What do you mean? James pressed. She took a deep breath. I opened a community center, a place where kids can learn skills, have mentors, feel safe. It's been a challenge, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's amazing, James breathed, genuinely impressed. He felt a pang of envy, realizing how much he had strayed from his altruistic beginnings. You always had a heart for people. Thank you, but that's not all, she continued, her expression changing to one of concern. I was hoping to talk to you about some funding opportunities. We could really use the support. James's chest tightened. The business side of him wanted to step up and help, but the emotional side felt conflicted. He glanced at Ethan, who was now watching them, eyes sharp, expression wrought with confusion and unease. Emily, I would love to help you with that, he said, forcing the words out, but a part of him already knew that the ghosts of their past, intertwining with their current lives, would complicate the situation. I know it's a lot to handle, especially if you've moved on, she said gently, her voice lowering. Still, I've always believed in the good you can do. James felt a lump form in his throat. Could he really juggle his past with his present? Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady yet wavering. What did you mean when you said life was full of surprises? What's really going on here? Emily looked at Ethan, then back to James, trying to gauge the weight of the situation. You were both part of my past, but, she paused, it's time for all of us to confront some truths that might change everything. James could feel the heat rising in his cheeks. The air grew heavier, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. What did she mean by, confront some truths? As Jeremy glanced from Ethan to Emily, the realization set in this was just a casual reunion. It was the start of a revelation that might shake everything he thought he understood. What lay beneath the fabric of their pasts was about to unravel. Would they welcome that chaos, or run from it? And as he braced himself for the coming storm, he couldn't help but wonder if reconciliation was even possible amidst the unfolding truth. Together, they would have to face what awaited. James clutched the edge of the booth with trembling fingers, the weight of Emily's words hanging in the air. Ethan stared back at him, brow furrowed, confusion swirling like a storm in his eyes. Emily, what do you mean? James asked, trying to keep his voice steady, but it cracked slightly. What truths? Emily took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly together. I'm talking about the past we shared, the dreams we once had, she said softly, her gaze piercing through James, reaching deep into the shadows of his memories. It feels like we've run miles from who we used to be. And sometimes, it's those old dreams that help us find our way back. They can even be the compass to guide us forward. Tension rippled through the booth as James shifted uncomfortably. He wanted to drown out the ghosts of his past, but Emily's presence was like a direct line back to the man he once was, and that scared him. I've moved on, Emily. We all have. Have you really? She challenged, her voice gentle yet insistent. You have this big life, all this success, but are you happy? James wanted to protest, to assert that success equated to happiness, but silence fell between them. The truth was, he didn't fully understand what happiness meant for him anymore. He glanced at Ethan, who looked torn, caught between wanting to support his friend and protecting his own feelings. "I thought we were past all this," Ethan finally said, his voice low but solid. Confusion turned to defensiveness as he crossed his arms. "You show up after so many years and you both start digging through the past. What gives, Emily?" James sensed a shift in Ethan, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Ethan, let her speak," he interjected. Emily smiled sadly. "No, I get it. This is all a lot. But I came here for a reason. I need your help, James. And I'm not just talking money. I need you back in my life, us back together in some way, to right those wrongs. You still have the power to change lives. The dreams we had, they may have just shifted shapes. Together?" Ethan repeated, disbelief etched on his face. "So, what happens to the CEO who built this life alone? Is this some kind of alternate route you're mapping? One where we all just cozy up and make amends?" James could see emotions washing over them, both the hurt, the confusion, the longing for connection. He felt torn, caught between a past intertwined with memories of hope and a present filled with uncertainty. The clatter of dishes and muffled conversations from other diners faded into the background. "Ethan, this isn't just about you and me," James replied, his voice calmer now. "This is about giving something back. I thought I was chasing success, but what if I've lost sight of what matters?" Emily nodded softly, as if validating his thoughts. "And what if the very people who shared those dreams could help bring them back into sight?" James inhaled deeply, heart racing with the possibilities. Could they really work together again? What if he could be part of something bigger, helping to shape lives like he once dreamed? But he couldn't ignore the risk of being pulled into a whirlwind of old emotions. Would opening that door force him to confront feelings he had locked away long ago? And if so, was he ready for it? As silence enveloped them, James's heart seemed to pound louder. There was a moment, just a heartbeat, when everything hung in the balance. "I need time to think," he finally admitted, feeling the burden of expectation settle over him like a weight. "This is a lot. We all need to sit with it." Ethan's expression softened, concern replacing tension. He leaned back, nodding slowly. "Maybe we can unpack this without rushing into anything." Before Emily could respond, the door to the diner swung open, drawing their attention. A young boy rushed in, breathless, holding out a piece of paper as if it were a trophy. "Mom! I made it! I won the contest!" he shouted, eyes sparkling with joy that lit up the whole diner. James, Emily, and Ethan exchanged glances, the moment stark against their heavy conversation. Amid their uncertainties, the boy's excitement radiated hope. James felt a warmth seep into his chest. Could the power of renewed dreams really shift their paths like that? Just then, James's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the spell the moment had cast. He pulled it out to see an unfamiliar number. Those three little dots bounced up and down, dancing on the screen. "Something's coming," he said quietly, heart racing anew. And just like that, the future they were building began to twist into something unforeseen, pulling them deeper into the chaos that was yet to come. What was waiting beyond that door, and how would it challenge everything they thought they knew? James felt the heat of anticipation build in the pit of his stomach. He stared at the screen of his phone, those three little dots a promise of something more. The atmosphere in the diner seemed to shift, charged with energy. Emily leaned forward slightly, eyebrows raised, while Ethan's expression turned curious. It was as if they all felt it, the electric tension of change about to unfold. "Who is it?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence, concern weaving through his voice. "I don't know. Just a number," James replied, feeling the familiar weight of uncertainty. He hesitated, looking back at Emily. She had pulled him close to a part of himself that he had nestled away for too long. Now, just when he was starting to entertain possibilities, an unexpected twist was bobbing in the water. He took a breath, their collective gaze still fixated on his phone. Each second felt stretched, heavy. James finally swiped the screen, and his heart skipped. "It's a text," he muttered, his voice almost distant, unsure of whether to share the news he hadn't yet deciphered. "What does it say?" Emily urged, leaning closer. He read aloud, "It's a meeting invite. For tomorrow." He paused, scouring the message. "It says, your presence is needed. Come prepared to discuss your purpose." The words hung over them like a veil. The ambiguity of the message sparked 1,000 potential scenarios in James's mind. He felt Emily's eyes on him, flickering between encouragement and apprehension. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his brow knitting once more. "Sounds ominous," Ethan scoffed, though the concern in his tone betrayed him. "I don't even know who sent it," James replied, the weight of the moment crashing heavier. "But it triggers something in me. It feels connected." "Connected how?" Emily asked. He wrestled with the answer, the truth scratching at the back of his mind. "I thought we were moving towards something bigger, a way to help. But this feels like it's pulling me in a different direction." Emily studied him, her eyes soft yet probing. "What are you afraid of?" James dropped his gaze, suddenly struck by the reality of his own apprehension. Eyes still glued to his phone, he was wrestling not just with what the message could mean, but what it might ask of him of them. "Maybe I'm already walking a path that is supposed to lead me somewhere, and I'm not sure I want to change course," he confessed, voice lowering. "Or maybe this is your chance to redefine that path," Emily countered, determination fortifying her words. "What if, instead of running away from the past, you embrace the fullness of everything of us?" Suddenly, the bakery's door opened again, this time revealing an older man with a briefcase, whose brow was lined with purpose. James felt a jolt of recognition. It was Mr. Tanner, a mentor from his early days before success pulled him into a world where he often felt more isolated than connected. "James." The man waved, making a beeline for their booth. "I'm so glad to see you." Ethan turned his head sharply, perplexity dancing on his features. "Do you know him?" "Yeah, he had an impact on me back in the day," James replied, uncertain how to explain the weight of that relationship. Mr. Tanner reached their table, his face breaking into a wide, proud smile. "I was just talking to a friend about you, and then I see you here. Is this the perfect place to catch up or what?" James's mind raced. There were too many pieces swirling at once: the text, the emotional weight of his conversation with Emily, and now Tanner, some odd twist of fate aligning. It dawned on him that he wasn't just at a diner, he was standing at a crossroads, and the decisions he made were about to collide with unexpected opportunities. "Can we talk?" Mr. Tanner asked earnestly, a glint in his eye that suggested there was more to say, insightful advice that could change everything. James glanced back at Emily and Ethan, one a reminder of dreams long cast aside, the other a steady hand in turbulent waters. "Absolutely," he replied, heart racing. With the weight of the day's revelations and a sense of urgency in the air, he knew the future was about to rewrite its script. With every choice made, steps taken, and intentions faced, they were moving towards something monumental. Yet, as he took Mr. Tanner's hand, James wondered, what awaited him in this uncharted territory, and would it help him navigate back to the joy he once held close? This moment felt tangible, but with every unfolding moment came an underlying question: could confronting the past truly lead to healing, or would it simply open old wounds? Mr. Tanner settled into the booth across from James, his presence immediately commanding the table. The contrast between the two men was striking. Tanner, with his silver-streaked hair and composed demeanor, exuded authority, while James felt like a swirling mix of excitement and dread. "How have you been, James?" Tanner asked, a warmth in his tone. "Last I heard, you were on a great trajectory." James hesitated, the memories flooding back like a burst dam. I've hit some bumps. Just trying to figure things out. Tanner nodded knowingly, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he could see through James's mask. Life has a way of throwing us off balance. But I've always believed in your potential. That text, who is it from? Before he could answer, Emily interjected, her curiosity bubbling over. It was an invite for a meeting tomorrow. Something about purpose. Tanner turned to James, a hint of intrigue sparking in his gaze. Your purpose, eh? That's a heavy word. What's been holding you back? James swallowed hard, his thoughts circling around the countless moments he had avoided confrontation with his own truth. I'm scared, I guess. Scared of where this path might lead. I thought I was making progress, but now I don't know. Let's unpack that, Tanner said, leaning in closer. What do you think the meeting is really about? What does it spark in you? Possibilities? James said, though it sounded more like a question than a statement. Memories of dreams faded and aspirations ignored weighed heavily on him. I just thought I was settling into a routine. Now, this feels like a reckoning. Every journey needs a pit stop, Tanner said as he glanced at Emily and Ethan, who were hanging on every word. Maybe this is your chance to reconnect with a purpose you once had. James closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the flood of memories to wash over him, the enthusiasm of his younger self, the spark, the drive to make something of himself. These moments felt like echoes of a time when he believed everything was possible. Do you think it could lead to something important? He asked cautiously. Emily's hand reached over, giving his arm a gentle squeeze. What if it leads back to you? To who you really are? Ethan nodded in agreement. You've spent too long in someone else's shadow, man. This is your shot to step into the light. The weight in James's chest seemed to ease slightly, as if they were lifting the fog that clouded his thoughts. Mr. Tanner's eyes gleamed with understanding. Trust yourself, James. Embrace this moment. You've got the tools to forge your own way. James felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. I think I need to go to that meeting, he said, his tone firming up. I need to face whatever is waiting for me. Good, Tanner replied, pride creeping into his voice. Just remember, it's not just about the outcome. It's about the journey you take to get there. And what's at stake? Your happiness, your vision are worth it. James nodded, his mind racing with newfound clarity. They spent the next few moments reflecting on their lives, sharing laughter, and diving into the raw realities that had shaped them. As the conversation flowed, he could feel the bonds between them strengthening, his fears ebbing away like tides receding, but just as the atmosphere in the diner shifted to something lighter, a buzzing in James's pocket brought him crashing back to reality. He pulled out his phone and stared at the new message illuminating the screen. James, I'm counting on you. Don't let this slip away. His heart raced again, the gravity of the words sinking in like stones in his stomach. He glanced up at Tanner, then shared a startled look with Emily and Ethan. What does it mean? He breathed, struggling to contain the swarm of thoughts that threatened to rise. As the air buzzed with uneasy tension, James knew that soon he would face not just a meeting, but the truth behind the fear that had held him captive for so long. And just like that, new, terrifying question emerged: was he truly ready to uncover the layers of himself he had buried deep? James felt the weight of the message pressing down on him, as if its urgency were pulling him toward a destiny he wasn't sure he was ready for. The buzz of the diner faded to the background, replaced by the pounding of his heart and the glances of his friends who sensed his distress. Maybe it's just a reminder, Emily ventured, her eyes searching for optimism in the pile of uncertainty. You've got this meeting, and it could be, well, everything. Or it could be a waste of time, James countered, his voice lower now, laced with doubt. What if this is just another dead end? Mr. Tanner leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing but not in judgment, in understanding. Every situation has potential. The key is what you choose to bring to the table. Just think about what's at stake for you. James stared at the table, the orange glow of the diner lights casting strange shadows on the surface. The potential for anything felt like a double-edged sword. What if I fail? Then you fail, Tanner said simply, a softness in his voice. But you also learn. Growth comes from discomfort, James. You know that. The conversation turned again, moving fluidly around the booth. Ethan spoke up, sharing a story of his own failures and how they had ultimately shaped him into who he was today. As the words flowed, James started to feel lighter, perspectives shifting like clouds revealing a sunny day. Look, Emily said, a grin creeping back onto her face. Whatever happens tomorrow, we've got your back. You're not alone in this. Tanner raised a glass of soda, and James mirrored the gesture, feeling the warmth of camaraderie envelop them. They toasted not just to tomorrow, but to daring to dream again, to stepping out from beneath familiar shadows. As laughter erupted around them, James's phone buzzed once more, pulling him away from laughter's embrace. It was another message, this one from an unknown number. Don't be afraid. Trust the process. A chill ran down his spine. Who was sending these messages? The mystery felt like a cloud hovering over his newfound resolve. Was this the universe teasing him, a sign to push him beyond his safe little bubble? Everything all right? Emily asked, noticing his sudden change in expression. James nodded but didn't speak. His thoughts tangled between the hope his friends offered and the chaotic signals from the universe. Something shifted in the atmosphere around him. It was electric, humming with untapped potential. Focus on why you're going tomorrow, Tanner said, his voice steady. What does this meeting mean to you? Beyond fear and doubt, why does it matter? James took a breath and closed his eyes again, clearing the noise. This was about rediscovering who he was, a path to reclaim lost fragments of himself. It mattered. For the first time in a long while, he felt anchored to a purpose. As the diner buzzed around him, he opened his eyes, scanning the faces of his friends. In this moment, James made a decision. I'll go, he said with newfound confidence. I'll go and face whatever it is waiting for me, whoever's behind those messages. There was a collective cheer, and he could still feel that flicker of hope igniting both within him and in his circle. Tanner smiled, genuine and proud. Just remember, the most courageous thing you can do might also be the most liberating. But just as the conversation resumed, swirling back into laughter and stories, James felt a presence shift behind him. He turned slightly, catching sight of a woman standing at the entrance of the diner, her eyes locked onto him with an intensity that stole his breath. The realization hit him in a rush. She looked familiar and yet, something about her seemed to spark recognition buried deep within. Who was she? What role did she play in the unraveling of his journey? In that moment, James understood everything was about to change once again, and he wasn't sure whether he was prepared for what lay ahead. But he knew he would have to find out. James felt his heart race as he locked eyes with the woman at the entrance. Everything around him fell away, wrapped in a surreal blur. The clattering dishes, laughter, and chattering voices faded into a muffled echo. She was here, and the intensity of her gaze made the air shift. Do you know her? Emily asked, her voice breaking through the spell that held him captive. He shook his head, struggling to find words. She looked like someone from his past, a ghost of a life he thought he had left behind. The gentle curl of her hair, the way her lips quirked at one side, it all felt achingly familiar. As she stepped closer, a part of him wanted to retreat. But another part, the part that had sparked in the diner with his friend's support, yearned for understanding. James, she finally said, her voice soft but charged with emotion. It's me, Sophie. His stomach dropped. Sophie. It had been years since he'd last heard her name, and the flood of memories hit him like a tidal wave. They were inseparable once, two dreamers with plans that fell apart as life pulled them in different directions. Yet here she was, standing right before him. Why now? Full of questions, he managed to keep his voice steady. "What are you doing here?" I needed to see you." Her gaze darted away, as though searching for the right words. "There's something I have to tell you. Something important." The table of friends melted away as James's focus narrowed to Sophie. His heart raced. Was this the revelation he dreaded, or the answers he had long sought? "Wait," he said, his mind racing. "You can't just drop that on me after all this time." "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, as if gearing up for a plunge into the depths of their shared past. "I've been following your journey, James. I got a job at the place you're going to meet. I heard about the project you're leading. I wanted to break the silence. Not because I wanted to intrude, but because what?" He pressed, already fearing the worst. "Because you think you can just step back in whenever you want?" A flicker of hurt crossed her face. "No. It's not like that. I've wanted to reach out for so long. I was scared. I feared I'd ruin everything. But I realized what? Anger rose, but it was mingled with curiosity and something else he didn't understand. Realize that you have every right to know the truth about your life and about mine," she said firmly, a new resolve settling into her posture. "There are things you don't know, and they could change everything." His mind raced again, alarm bells ringing. Change everything? Was that good or bad? James wanted to scream, to push her away, but he felt something softer bubbling beneath the anger, a flicker of hope entwined with fear. What truth could possibly be hidden from him? Could it trigger another heartbreak, or offer him the clarity he had been longing for in the shadow of uncertainty? "You need to come with me," she continued. "We need to talk in private." His heart thundered in his chest, torn between the fierce protective instincts he'd built since she'd walked out of his life and a desperate yearning to know what had been kept from him all these years. He glanced back at his friends, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. The words stuck in his throat. In his gut, an unsettling feeling churned. But the intensity of Sophie's eyes held him steady. The past loomed large, compelling him to take one more plunge. "Okay, let's talk." As they stepped outside into the cool evening air, a swirl of chaos greeted him right at the edge of something monumental and terrifying. James took a deep breath, ready to uncover the truth that could rewrite his story entirely. But what was the truth Sophie was holding back? And why was it suddenly crucial now? The night air enveloped them, its coolness a sharp contrast to the heated moment just spent inside. James felt the weight of Sophie's presence beside him, a beacon of familiarity in an uncertain landscape. He followed her step as she led him a little further from the café's bright lights, the stir of laughter and chatter fading behind them. "Here," she said softly, gesturing toward a quiet park bench nestled beneath a cluster of swaying trees. He sat down, his movements stiff as he absorbed the reality that Sophie, the girl he once loved fiercely, now held the balance of his future in her hands. "I've missed you," he finally confessed, the words spilling out before he could catch them. It felt surreal. Those words were lip service to the depths of an emotional chasm that had carved itself in his heart since she left. Sophie looked taken aback. "I never stopped thinking about you, James. No matter how much time passed, you were always there." This admission struck a chord. Their history loomed around them like a ghost, and he could feel old wounds surfacing. But if they were going to revisit the past, it had to lead somewhere. "What's this truth you're talking about?" He pressed, keeping his voice steady. "Why now?" I had my reasons for staying away," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "But I regret how it all ended. Life took us both on different paths, and I thought, maybe, if I stayed out of your life, it would be easier. But it's not. Seeing you again made me realize how wrong I was." His heart sank as he sensed an undercurrent of fear in her tone. Was she about to reveal something he wasn't ready to hear? "It's about the project you're leading," she continued, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "There's something you should know about me, the choices I made after we split. They were life-altering. The question hung in the air, dense with impending revelation. What do you mean? Did you work with someone I know? The thought churned in his stomach. He felt oddly possessive over the people in his circle, a reflex from years of upheaval. No, she said, shaking her head, but her eyes were wide and glistening, words tumbling forth in a rush. It's deeper than that, James. You have a sister. A moment of complete silence. The world swirled around him, colors blending in a chaotic haze. A sister? He had always thought himself an only child. His parents never mentioned another child. What are you talking about? Sophie took a deep breath. I never told you because I was afraid of how you'd react. I thought it would be too much, too overwhelming. Her name is Clara, and she's never known about you, or your life. We kept it a secret because of circumstances beyond our control. Shock rippled through him, freezing his thoughts, tearing at the fabric of everything he once believed. All those years of feeling alone were suddenly intertwined with a new, vivid possibility. A sister? What did that even mean? Are you sure? He whispered, his mind racing with all the lost time. How do you know she exists? I found her. Just a few months ago. She's been raised by a foster family after everything that happened. I wanted to tell you once I had a chance to piece everything together. Her voice cracked as tears pooled at the corners of her eyes. Why didn't you? His voice trembled. You could have saved me years of searching. I thought I was alone. The emotion surged within him, anger mixing with a confusing mix of hope. Why now, Sophie? Her gaze locked onto his, filled with both regret and determination. Because you deserve to know your family, James. You deserve to have a chance to connect with her, to understand where you come from, and who you really are. Everything seemed to come undone around him. The truth hung above them, 3 simple words creating a ripple effect through the fabric of his identity. He was on the precipice of something monumental, and he could either take the leap or walk away, but one question gnawed at him, urging for clarity. What have I gotten myself into? The silence that followed seemed to stretch endlessly, the night wrapped tightly around them. James could almost feel fate dangling before him, daring him to grasp it. The air crackled with tension, the question of a possible reunion looming larger than ever. Are you ready to find your sister? Sophie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. And with that, James found himself at the crossroads of his past and future, wondering if stepping into the unknown could truly lead to healing and connection, or if it would unravel the very last threads of the life he thought he knew. James stared at Sophie, his world teetering on a precipice of understanding. A sister? The thought crashed through him like tidal waves against cliffs. All those years of feeling an unshakable loneliness, and now, a flicker of hope refused to be dimmed. He thought of the dreams, the aspirations buried beneath layers of self-preservation, and suddenly realized that this time, he had to confront the very essence of who he was: a brother. Is she okay? He struggled to articulate the rising tide of emotions. She's been through a lot, Sophie replied, her eyes shimmering with sincerity. But she's strong, and she's looking for her roots. James, it's time to bring back our past into the light. His heart raced with trepidation and excitement, thoughts racing back to Ethan and Emily, the warmth and growth he'd found with them. How could he dive into this revelation without involving them? What's next? How can I meet her? Sophie's face softened, a hint of relief glimmering through her worry. We can start by researching her background together. I've been gathering information. We can take small steps. This doesn't have to be overwhelming. The thought of reconnecting with a sister shook the ground he stood on. He looked at Sophie, who had carried this weight alone for so long. Her admission felt like a bridge. They were back together, standing on the cusp of rebuilding. I can't believe this is happening. After all this time, he murmured, trying to wrap his mind around the fierce tide of emotions. A realization settled on him, a deeper yearning than he had ever acknowledged. You can no longer let fear of the past hold you back, she encouraged softly, placing her hand gently on his. Your sister deserves the chance to know you. His breath hitched at the urge rising within him. I want to do this. With you. We can right the wrongs. He felt another pulse of hope surge up, this time, fierce and unwavering. Just as the weight of these revelations began to settle in, James's phone buzzed again. He peeked at the screen, and a spark of urgency ignited anew. What now? Who is it? Sophie asked, her curiosity piqued. It's Ethan. He read the text aloud. James, are you okay? We lost sight of you. James glanced back at the diner, where the warm glow now felt like a beckoning light. They weathered the storms together, he could not keep them locked outside the walls of his new world. I need to bring them in. Sophie nodded understandingly, her fingers intertwined with his in silent support. Together, they walked back, re-entering the familiar space where they carved out moments of joy and laughter. As they stepped inside, all eyes turned toward them. Ethan's expression shifted from worry to confusion to relief in a heartbeat. There you are. We were about to send a search party. I'm glad I found you, James replied, feeling lighter as he gestured Sophie to join him. I need to share something important with you all. Ethan and Emily leaned in, concern mingling with intrigue. James took a deep breath, clasping Sophie's hand in his, a reminder of the new journey that lay ahead. This is Sophie, and she's going to help me find my sister. An electric silence hung in the air, then Ethan's face cracked into a genuine grin. Your sister? You have a sister? James nodded, adrenaline pumping. I do. And together, we're going to make sure she knows her family. I didn't just gain a history today, I found a future. Emily smiled, her eyes shining. That's amazing, James. We're in this with you. We will help however we can. He felt the weight of their friendships wrap around him, anchoring his resolve. The past had tangled them together, and now they stood side by side, ready to facilitate healing. As conversations erupted into excitement, James felt a warm glow spread through him, a feeling of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Tomorrow, we'll begin our search, he announced, solidifying the partnership that would form once again. We'll dig deep, and together, we'll bring Clara back into the light. An invisible thread stitched their hearts, the bonds forged in previous struggles fortified with a newfound purpose. The laughter, the support, it all spilled like sunlight over the universe of possibility. They would take on everything together. At that moment, James finally understood, happiness was not owed to possessions or accolades. It resided in connection, understanding, and the courage to face the unknown. He was ready to discover who he truly was, not just as a CEO, but as a brother, a friend, and a man of purpose. With hearts aglow, they began to map out a plan, each idea sparking a light in James's soul. This is what he had longed for, a family. And through each step forward, he could finally let go of the heavy chains of solitude. As they spoke and dreamed, James felt the past fold itself into a someday future, a bright horizon waiting just beyond the wheels of life. Now, here's my urgent request to you. If you want to follow this thrilling journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second. Hit that like button so we can keep bringing you incredible stories like this one. And please, comment below about your feelings on James's transformation and what family means to you. Lastly, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartwarming journey unfold. You are part of something special. Your support matters more than you know.